Hi, everybody. Welcome to Empowered Spirit Healing. My name is Paula, and today I'm talking to the beautiful Bryce all the way in the US. How are you going today?
I'm so good. I don't know why it is. I always want to say inspired. I can't even speak this morning. Mercury retrograde, inspired healing, yoga. I always want to add yoga to the interview channel name. Mercury retrograde. This Mercury retrograde has been complicated.
Yeah, it really has. I don't normally feel them so much, but this one, I feel like it's just really hit me hard. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it's just all over the shop.
It feels like we're swimming against the current. That's what it always
Yes,
feels like to me, that you're just swimming against the current, and there's really
yes.
nothing you can do about it because that's just the nature of Mercury. And it always feels, when you look at Mercury retrograde on the calendar, it's like, oh, that's not bad. It's just a few weeks. It's fine. But when you're in it,
Oh, it feels like forever, doesn't it?
forever. And so for any of our friends watching right now that aren't familiar with how this works, like, you're not crazy. We're in Mercury retrograde. My computer's been stalling, my phone's been stalling. It's been hard to, your words get jumbled in Mercury
Mhm.
retrograde, because Mercury is the planet of communication. So any type of communicative, or even I usually have like car issues during Mercury retrograde. So anything that's
Oh,
like,
right.
yeah, so you're not crazy if you're watching this and you feel like you're swimming upstream. It's Mercury retrograde. This is what it is. And isn't that funny, Paul? Because back in like the days of yore, our ancestors would take this time as like a resting period of introspection.
Right. Which is so important to do, but we just don't have time in our modern lives to do that. I know I've just been like in high stress mode. I've just been like, I just feel like I've been on high alert and just, yeah, just so much going on. And today I actually just had to make myself take a breather.
Yeah.
It was a bit hard to do because I was just like, there's so much to do. And I'm like, no, I can't keep coming from this energy, because when you're coming from that highly stressful energy, things don't go very well. They don't go smoothly. You make mistakes and accidents happen and things like that. So I was just like, okay, no, I just made myself just lay down. I dropped my girls off at school. I had to do food shopping, all the fun mum stuff. And then I just came home and I literally just laid in bed and I'm like, right, I just made myself do a meditation and I'm just like, I just need to calm my body down. And I'm so glad I did, because I really am feeling so much better.
Yes. And that's what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do in Mercury retrograde. It's supposed to be a pause. That's the
Mm.
way that the universe designed it. It would be so mumbled. It happens 3 times a year. So 3 times a year, you're supposed to kind of take a pause and do some introspection. But again, you're right. The way that they have our matrix set up,
You don't have time to
and
do
do
it.
that, right? You can't, and so it becomes very frustrating. You're not supposed to sign any new contracts during Mercury retrograde. But the positive thing about Mercury retrograde is that it's a really good time to finalize things that you have been working on. So if there's a
Right.
project you have been working on that you need to finish, Mercury retrograde is going to give you the opportunity. So in that aspect, things like that run even more, they're smoother running because you're able to finish it up and come to a completion of any other projects during that time. You just don't want to start, you don't want to buy a house during this time. You don't want to sign a marriage contract during this time. Like there's so many weird nuances to Mercury retrograde, but it is what it is, guys. We signed up for this life, so
Yeah. So now we just got to deal with it.
deal with it now. So there's no getting out of it. We can't exit the ride. So again, to our people watching, if you've been feeling these last few weeks, it also will pull up your anxieties and your depressions too. So if that's something, I know that for me, that always comes up hardcore. My anxiety comes up hardcore during this
Yeah.
time, but that's you communicating with yourself. And so just be easy on yourself and know that this too shall pass. It goes direct on April the 7th, and then we have about a week of shadow period before everything lines back up again. And so, as it always does, it's one of my favorite mantras: "This too shall pass. This too shall pass." So yeah, that Mercury man, he's a little trickster, isn't he?
So I didn't realize it happens 3 times a year. So that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And all the planets go retrograde, right? Like we have a Venus retrograde, Mars was retrograde. It just went direct on
Yeah.
Monday again.
Mhm.
But I feel like every planet represents a different energy cycle, just like every
Yeah.
chakra represents a different energy cycle. So some planets, when they retrograde, because of the energy that they're in, we don't feel it as much. It may be more subtle. But
Mhm.
because Mercury is a big planet of communication, and I wonder, Paula, like back in like maybe like the 70s or the 80s, before they're, in the 90s, that's when we started getting into like the internet started to slowly come around, cell phones started to slowly come around, but 70s, 80s, like I wonder if Mercury retrograde was as bad back then as it is now because there was less.
Less technology. Yeah, that's interesting.
Like if we didn't feel it as much, like maybe you would have like misunderstandings with friends or something, like because sometimes that happens in
Yep.
Mercury retrograde where because it's communication, right? So there's a misunderstanding. You have to be very clear and intentional, and Mercury, just be aware of that with Mercury retrograde. But yeah, this is a big one. And some of the planets will go retrograde for like years, like
Oh,
Saturn might.
wow.
Yeah, like so some of them we don't even like notice,
Mhm.
but this is a big one. It's a big one. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
I
just
know,
be
because so many people I've been speaking to are just like struggling in one way or another. Just, yeah, I feel like it's hit everyone quite hard. And I think because it's in Aries, so it's quite fiery. So it's just really bringing stuff to the forefront that we just, stuff that you just haven't wanted to deal with. It's just coming up. Like I've realized I've got a lot more healing work to do on with abandonment, actually. I've done some work on that on myself in the past, but it's just hit me lately. I'm just like, wow, I really need to go a bit deeper into this because it's still really affecting me, affecting my life. So yeah, it's good when those things come up because then you're like, okay, now I know I need to work on this. So that is a positive, but it's just yucky. It just feels yuck.
That's a good way to look at it. It's a checkup, right? It's like you're going
Yeah.
through Mercury retrograde, besides just the technology stuff and the just communication stuff being weird. I was telling you yesterday when I was teaching my live class, our computer froze that I checked people in. It just froze. So I text Cindy and I was like, here's the list of people I couldn't, and that's just typical of Mercury retrograde, right? Like stuff like that, just minor inconveniences. But when it comes to like the deeply personal stuff, it is. And I think that's why our ancestors used this time as a time of reflection and rest, because it was like a checkup. It was like a checkup to see like what remnants of karma was still there, and that's a good thing to bring up too, Paula, because I think especially for beginners, like I'm glad you brought that up because your shadow work, it's never going to totally go away.
No.
Like you're not ever going to like totally fix your anger issues or totally fix it's a constant like it's layered.
There's layers. Yeah. Yeah. It's like what they say in the Shrek movie. It's like you're an onion and there's layers. And it is.
Layered.
It's like when you peel one layer off, it's like you resolve that. And then certain things in your life do seem to
Yeah.
get better and they shift because you have healed that. But then once you've uncovered that layer, then it's like, okay, you can go deeper now. Now you can get into an even juicier kind of part. And then you've got to get through that. And that can be so yucky and difficult to get through. But once you kind of work through that and heal that and expose it, bring it to the light, then, and then things shift again and things can be better again for a while. And then you kind of get to the next layer and it can get yucky again. So it's just this kind of constant. But I still think even though it can be yucky and it can be uncomfortable and you can cry a lot and it can bring up a lot of stuff, I still would never choose to not go through this because the benefits far outweigh the negatives. I have to share, Bryce, today. I was in tears on my way home. My oldest daughter, Bella, she goes to me today. She goes, I have a class called Wellbeing because they're at a Steiner school. So it's a very nurturing kind of school environment. And in Wellbeing, they'll talk about different topics that affect teenagers. And so she's in year 10, so she's 15. And the teacher said, okay, so I want you to name somebody that you really respect and look up to, someone that's like, had a really big impact in your life and that you really look up to. She said me.
Aww.
Oh my God. And I was just crying. I was like, oh my God, like I just felt so special that of all the people she could have chosen, like she chose me.
She picked you.
Sees me as, I mean, I know she loves me and I know she appreciates me because she tells me that a lot, which I'm so grateful for. But just when, you know, to be asked that and to pick me, I was just like, wow, I can't believe I've had such a big impact on her life. Like that was just one of those moments that just makes all the hard stuff worth it.
I was
You
about
know?
to say, look at the karma that the course correction you made from your childhood.
My upbringing. Yeah.
For your children, you made that conscious decision to be that support system for them that you didn't have, you know. And so that shows the work that you've done in this life. You know, we always have that choice, and that's what's so hard, because it takes us, I think, a while into our adulthood to realize that there's some patterns that we have that we're mimicking from our parents.
Yeah.
And even though we didn't like that with our parents, we were kids, it's the only way we know how to do certain things, and so we just do it the way they did it. But to be able to like hit the brakes and to realize that you don't want to repeat that pattern, even though you don't have the template of a different way to do things, so you're kind of out on your own, navigating a new way to do things, but you did that. And that speaks highly, and that's so important. I want our audience to hear that, because that's what it's about, is like that, just that course correction of creating healthier patterns. And
it's taken time. I mean, when my big girls were little, I did do a lot of the things that my mum did. I did lose my temper a lot and get angry and kind of just, I didn't know how to cope. But I just kept searching for answers because I thought, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be this kind of mum. I mean, I'm not really into the soft parenting either. I don't think being too soft is good, because I just feel like you're not setting healthy boundaries if you're too soft. But then I just didn't want to be angry all the time. I'm like, this is horrible. This is just, I'm just losing my temper at them. And it's something that, like, you know, okay, so maybe they spilt something. It's not a big deal. You can just mop it up with some wet wipes or some paper towel. Like, it was definitely an overreaction. And I realize now that that's because I was just so unhappy in my life. And I think my mum was like that because she was so unhappy in her life. And these days I'm so happy. Like, I love my life so much. Like, it's, you know, of course things are not perfect and there's still things that could be improved, but overall, like, I'm doing what I love. Like, I get to have chats with you all the time. We've created an amazing academy together, and I've got beautiful friends and family. And I feel like, because I am quite so happy, I don't get as angry as I used to, because there's just, I don't know, it just doesn't come up like that. So I think, but also a lot of training as well, and correcting, and just read a lot of books. I read a lot of books about parenting and stuff, and trying to change my mindset and things. And so it has taken years of work to get there, and healing work as well. But it's like I said, it's so worth it, because the benefits outweigh. And then, you know, just to come home and hear my daughter say that about her day was just so special.
Your oldest child is the one that's like, you guys have been through it together. Right, exactly. I'm an oldest child, so I'm like, I used to get in trouble for things my little sister never got in trouble for, because you are the experimental child. You are the one. I always laugh. My boyfriend is the youngest of three, and he's the only boy. He has two older sisters. I don't think his parents knew where he was half the time growing up, because I think by the time the third comes around and it's the only boy,
you're just like, yeah, you'll be right.
As long as they're alive, they're fine. You know, like, I don't think so. He had a very different childhood to my childhood, where the older children are more micromanaged than the younger children are, you know. And so it's and of course, like, I heard a stand-up comedian once, I'm paraphrasing, he was like, oldest children need awards, because we are given to people who've never had kids before. Like, the oldest child is given to people who've never had children before. So, you know, and I've never had a kid, but I know for my sister and my friends, like, the same story you hear all the time. You're at the hospital, you give birth, and then it's time to go home, and they give you their baby, and they're like, bye. And you're just like,
it's like, oh my God, what do I do?
are you not coming with me? Like, can you come back? How do I keep it alive? You know, like,
Can you just come and stay with me for a few days and just
like, what do
ease
I
me
do?
into this?
What do I do?
And they kick you out of the hospital really quickly now. Like with Bella, I think I stayed a couple of nights because there were some complications. But with Natalia, there wasn't, and so they're just like, "Yep, off you go." And then same with Scarlett. Like they actually gave me the option with her because there was complications again. So they're like, "You can actually go home now if you want to, or you can stay the night." And I was just kind of like, "Oh, just in case something happens to her, I wanted to be close to the nurses and stuff." But it all went fine, and then I went home in the morning. But they try and kick you out really quick, and so if it's your first baby, it's like good luck.
I don't know how it is in Australia, and I don't know if this is true around the world, but from what I've heard, they wait for the woman also to have a bowel movement. Like they want to make sure the woman. So I had a friend once who lied and kept telling them she hadn't gone to the bathroom just so she could stay.
So she can stay for longer. Yeah, they came around and they gave me prune juice. They're like, "Here, drink this." And I was like, "Oh, yuck."
They want you to go to the woman. They want you to go to the bathroom after you've had your first, and they know that so that you're fine as the woman, that your body is fine too. Isn't that crazy? Because you got two people, you got a baby and the mom whose health now they're monitoring before they send you on your way. But yeah, I had a friend who kept lying and saying she had because she didn't want to go. She wanted to stay. And she didn't want to. She was scared to take. And there's a stand-up comedian who's hysterical, and he talked about like being an oldest child, and he was like, what's his name? Barzetti. I follow. Anyway, he's hysterical. He does clean comedy too. So and he talks about being he's like 10 years older than me. He's talks about being the oldest child. And he goes, "You're born to people who are poor. You get to this earth and you look around, you're like, I don't even think I'm supposed to be here yet." Your siblings are born and they're not born to poor people. They come around when your parents have made money, and so you're the oldest. And we talked about he's got a little sister who's 10 years younger than him. And he goes, "I was raised by parents. She was raised by her best friends."
Like, oh my God, that's so funny.
Just what the oldest child goes through. But yeah, no, that oldest child, they they hit but the thing about you could tell Bella this too, they've learned now that when a mother is pregnant with her baby, some of the baby's DNA will stay in the womb. And that maybe explains why the mother does actually have like a psychic ability with her children, is because some of their DNA is actually still in her body. But what also happens is the siblings after the first one also collect some of the older siblings' DNA. So that's why a lot of older siblings become nurturers to their younger siblings, because it's kind of the same psychic. So Scarlett's got both Natalia and Bella's DNA.
Yes.
Her too. And, so Bella's the only one that doesn't have their DNA, but they have hers.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild?
It is crazy.
How science kind of backs the spiritual connection too, with the way the DNA kind of is implanted.
And I wonder if that's why often the oldest can kind of have that mothering kind of, like they feel responsible, because I know that Bella a lot, she feels responsible to look out for her younger sisters. And sometimes I'm like, it's okay, just calm down. I'm the mum here, just let me do my job. But
well, she might sense that her DNA is also within them as well, and so she has that sense of responsibility. No, it's wild the way, and my friend Cindy and I were at Sacred Garden, we're talking about this, that it seems like family karma too, that really hits the oldest sibling more than like the younger ones. Like it kind of starts to fizzle out. Like if you have a big family, let's say they're like 7 kids, like the first like 3 or 4 kids will really carry the karma, but then after that it like fizzles out a little bit.
Yeah, right.
So the birth order that your soul has picked also says what you're taking on in this world. So if you are an oldest child or a second, if you come from a big family, if you're an only child, God bless you, because you got all the karma.
Yeah, I know. It's all on you.
It's all on you, boo. And it's in sibling relationships. My favorite meme, I've said this before, that explains siblings relationships the best. They're the weirdest. If you really think about it, having siblings is so weird, because there's another human being in this world that shares your DNA pool, that literally shares the same parents as you, where you have very same childhood memories, but you're two different people. Like but I love the meme. It's like with a sibling, like, I will give you my kidney, but you cannot touch my phone charger.
Yeah. And that is my two oldest to a T.
Yeah. I will give you my kidney, but don't you touch my phone charger.
Yeah. It's like borrowing stuff. It's just like, oh my God, like seriously? Like you want to borrow my hairdryer? Like why? Get your own,
But here's a kidney. I'll save your life.
He's like, I love you so much. Or, if they're getting bullied at school
Take
or
my
something.
blood, here's a transfusion. Yeah, it's well, I love it too. Like, no matter how established you become in your life, like no matter how many degrees you acquire, or how prosperous you become, none of that really matters to your siblings.
Yeah.
Like they'll be proud of you, but they still see you as that kid.
They still see, yeah, they know all the little embarrassing moments and
right. They don't give a shit. They remembered when you wiped boogers on them and like read their diary. Like it doesn't matter to them. Like you're still, they don't see you the same way other people see you. And another meme I saw with siblings, a girl wrote that she heard her 56-year-old dad tell her 60-year-old aunt, "Don't tell mom." And she goes, "So just so you guys know, it never stops." You're always keeping secrets. Don't tell mom. Like my dad's 56, my aunt is 60, and my dad's going, "Don't tell mom." Like
so funny.
It never stops. It never stops. So, but speaking of like soul agreements, this has been a wild week because I text you, Paula. I said it on the reading. I had pulled a Cassiopean forum over JFK because that's the hot topic right now, right, in the world. And I saw it and I left the forum up on my laptop for it was like a Wednesday. I found it. I was going to film it on Monday. So for all these days, I kept checking it, rereading it, resetting it up to read it on Monday to talk about what the Cassiopeans had to say about JFK. And Monday morning I got up. It had been all set up Sunday night to go. And then Monday morning I got up. And this was a reading from like 1995, 1996, something like that. And it was another reading from, August 17th of 2024 that had been pulled up. And I text you, I was like, girl, the craziest thing just happened. So I sat down at my laptop. And again, this is Mercury retrograde. So I was thinking, oh my God, what the hell? It just jumped to a totally different date. I've been sitting here all week. So I started to skim it. And I realized that this was the reading where they really talked a lot about soul smashing. Which is what you and Todd had just spoken about. Well, it wasn't really what you guys planned to speak about. Todd was answering.
No, it just kind of came up.
Yeah. And so I was reading this and I got goosebumps and I was like, note taken. This is what they want us to talk about because literally Paula and Todd have just spoken about this.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cassiopeans are like, don't worry about JFK right now. We need to talk about this. This is what's really important to the collective. JFK is not important to your own personal soul cycle, right? That's just gossip. Yeah. But, and it's interesting, but right now we're at this huge crux. And so I text you and I was like, oh my God, like I really feel like the Cassiopeans changed.
Yeah. They brought this up because they were like, we want you to cover this. This needs to get out there. This is so interesting.
And I wanted to, because of course I don't participate in the interviews that you do with Todd just for ethical reasons. But I do edit them. And so, I mean, that was almost a 2-hour conversation you guys had. And it was so enlightening because sometimes, the thing about Todd is he's very introverted. I mean, he's not as introverted with me, but there are things that he will learn that he'll keep to himself and not even say to me. Like, I didn't even know that that was what soul smashing or selling your soul was, even though he knew that, but we'd never talked about it.
Yeah, right.
So seeing your reaction to him answering the questions and then going over it again on Monday, I thought, I want to hear from you because it was very clear what he was saying, wasn't it? Very clear what the Cassiopeans are saying selling your soul is.
Yeah, because I guess whenever I've heard that saying, I just kind of think of people that are kind of involved in some kind of a, maybe a ritual or something, or just, choosing to give up their soul in order to get some kind of materialistic gain.
Yeah.
But basically it's kind of just believing, well, because he's saying that we shouldn't be believing in things that aren't true, basically, but like being attached to that belief.
Yeah.
So like with the whole religion thing, people are very, very attached
Mhm.
to the story of Jesus and things like that, and what happened and how he died on the cross and things like that. And that's very, people are very, very attached to that, and will get so defensive and so protective of it. And so that is essentially selling your soul. And I was just like, whoa,
It smashes your
that,
soul, it's selling it.
yeah,
Well, it
yeah,
makes sense though, because you're giving your power away. You're
yeah.
self-identifying with something that's not within you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the really important key here, because a lot of these spiritual practices, whether it's yoga, whether it's taekwondo, whether it's Reiki, all of it really comes down to is finding your sense of self
Mm-hmm.
beyond the exterior. So who am I beyond Bryce? Who am I beyond my circumstances in this life? That's your sense of self. Like if
Mm-hmm.
everything was to be taken away from me, which we know now, my grandfather used to say that, and long back when we were kids, my grandfather, who had had a near-death experience, used to say, kids, they can take, to all of us, his grandkids, they can take everything from you. Everything can be taken from you. You don't realize that, but they can. The only thing they can't take from you is you,
Yeah,
your character. So that's what he was saying. And that we saw that in 2020, how easy like that things can be that we
yeah.
think was so secure can just
And
be.
that we're so identified with
Mhm. And so
jobs and everything.
if you're working on your sense of self and who you are, you have a sense of self to rest in. You can rest within yourself. You can be
Mm-hmm.
alone with yourself. When these beliefs that you hold are challenged, are proven to be false, it's not going to really affect you, because even though you might believe in that, you're not attaching to it as
Mm-hmm.
your identity. And so it's easier to let that go. So you haven't really, does that make sense? Like if you have a sense of self to rest into,
Yeah.
you're not selling yourself. You're not giving your power away to something outside of
To
yourself.
that idea. Yeah, and I think that's why it's very helpful to be open-minded,
Hmm.
and to, especially in the truther community, when, over the years we've started to learn that, okay, certain people aren't who we thought they were, and certain people are in here trying to mix things up and put in some false, they might speak 90% truth, but then 10% lies to kind of confuse us and things like that. And so I think that it can get dangerous if you just are really, really attached to a particular idea, and then it turns out that that wasn't true, or that was a part of an infiltration situation. Then yeah, that it's really can be quite, yeah, not very good at all, basically. Sorry, I'm not very good at the whole
So it's
Mercury.
give your
I
power
can't get
away.
my words out. I'm trying to explain, but
It's just
yeah,
giving your power
actually
away.
speaking of that, sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna quickly share, like, I don't know, have you ever heard of A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl? It's a tiny little book, but he was a guy that was in the how do I explain this? The NAZI
The
in the
Yahtzee.
yeah,
Yahtzee.
yeah. So he was in one of their camps, and basically he was a psychologist. I think he was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, either one. But basically he did a lot of studying of the mind and everything. And like he lost his wife, he lost his daughter, um, he lost everything and chucked in this camp. And it was just incredible because he saw people around him just deteriorating and just and being unalived, and it was a horrible experience. But what he did learn is that the one thing that they can't take away from him was his mind, was his thoughts, was the happy memories he had with his daughter and his wife. And he would practice little things like each day, maybe if he got a smile from another person in the camp, or if he got another, maybe he got an extra helping with his food when it was dished up, and little things like that. It was just really he really went within and really empowered himself, and he really came out of that so much stronger. It's a fascinating, it's sad to read, but it's a really amazing book to read or to listen to. And it's just incredible because it's just how you're saying, you know, like we just really need to, with our mind, it's just so important to go within and to not get caught up in external things. And I think that's the main thing. Like, I love the story of Jesus or Yeshua or whatever you want to say. I love what he was trying to teach, and I think he had a beautiful impact on the world. But the idea that he was on the cross and had to be sacrificed, just to save us, for our sins, it just does not resonate with me. And I don't like it when people can get very, very, like, as I've come across some YouTubers who talk about this, and they're very strong in their opinion that he is the only way that you can be saved. And
Yeah,
I just
selling your soul. They sold
yeah,
their
but
soul.
that's what I feel like it. And because, you know, my channel's called Empowered Spirit Healing, I'm all about empowering yourself. And I feel like that just defeats the purpose, because you're giving all your power away to this idea of a person. And I bet if he was here right now, he'd be saying to everyone, please don't give your power to me. Please empower yourself.
That was his real
you-
teaching, was you have to save yourself.
Yeah. Yes. And he'd be like, okay, you know, maybe take a lot of my behaviors on board and treat people the way I treated people. That would be amazing. But please don't give your power away.
Well,
to
and
this.
I've said it before, like when I started going through the missing books of the Bible,
Mhm.
realized that he was never crucified. It made sense to me because all of a sudden the dots connected. Oh, of course the real God would never
do that.
This is a Luciferian thing to do this. And I felt that liberation. And of course, the Cassiopeians also say, no, that never happened. He was never hung on a cross. That never happened. And I thought when I got to my channel to like give this good news, hey guys, guess what? We don't have to believe so hard in this like horrific story. The amount of pushback that I got from the Christians was unbelievable. Like, they wanted that blood. They were vultures. And I had somebody say on my comment section the other day, like, oh, most Christians would never. I know there are good Christians out there, but in my experience on YouTube for 5 years, the only people who have ever really threatened me hardcore, besides like the witch coven, have been Christians. I have a file full of unaliving threats from Christians, simply because I was going through the missing books of the Bible. And this has always been my complaint. Like, okay, so you Christians are upset with all the censorship, rightly so, when it comes to the bippity boppity boo bop, when it comes to the games of the world, we'll say the Matrix, you don't want anything censored, but you do want things censored with religion. So you're not anti-censorship.
Yeah.
If you're anti-censorship, then you want everything to be exposed. But what happens, and Todd says this best, is when we see our opinions, our subjective opinions, as absolute truth, and we start to identify with those opinions as who we are, then when those opinions get challenged, our sense of self is then challenged. And that's why it's like experiencing a death. That's why people react the way they do. That's why people on the left are reacting the way that they're reacting, is because they've identified with the propaganda as the truth. And then we also see that in our side with religious people identifying and reacting and sending me unaliving threats because they've identified with this human sacrifice as being the truth. And now to have factual evidence that it never happened, that is now crumbling their sense of self, because they did sell their soul. They did sell, so they don't have that sense of self to lean in because they gave it away. Now you can get it back. You know, it's funny. We see it in the truther world with people who, you know, the Cassiopeians have been very clear that JFK Jr. is not alive. He's not alive. And so the military back channel, you guys know that the military back channel also said he was not alive. But these people
have really held on to that.
So the cognitive dissonance sets in, and they want to believe that this guy that they don't even know is going to swoop in and save them. They've identified that entitlement. They've sold their soul to this concept that this person, instead of them having to rest in their own laurels and settle into their own sense of self, for me, it doesn't matter if he's alive or not. It does not affect my life. If he's alive, then that's great for his family, but
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me because
But
I don't
yeah,
know
it doesn't
that
affect me at all.
at
Yeah.
all. And you know, I know in that big documentary they said, well, they said, you know, they said junior, and since his father's gone, that would that. No, you guys, my father is a junior. My grandfather was Edgar Lee Watson Sr. My father is Dr. Edgar Lee Watson Jr. My grandfather is no longer alive. My dad is still junior. Because my grandfather passed away, it doesn't mean that my grandfather, his name is null and void.
Yeah.
He still was a person, and on his tombstone it says Edgar Lee Watson Sr. So just because senior is gone doesn't make junior now senior. That's why you have, you know, the fifths and the sixth. If you have a kid that's, James Thomas, Hollowell, whatever, the sixth, he's the 6th. He doesn't know the senior, the first one, because that was sixth generation. Does that make sense? So this is all cognitive dissonance. And I think too, and I've said this for years now, that the controllers of the world, the Illuminati, is many things, but stupid ain't one of them.
Yeah.
And if they knew a certain amount of people were going to wake up to the propaganda, then they were going to have to be extra clever and put more propaganda into the alternative media to get you to sell your soul. If they can't get you to sell your soul to the mainstream media, then they're going to get you to sell your soul to the alternative media. And so in my opinion, 99% of truthers are not going to ascend because they've self-identified with a story that's not true. There's no proof of it being true.
And this is what happens when you don't do the inner work, because like, I mean, look, I've gone through it too. There were people that I was following and certain things that I believed in, and I was like, oh my God. And then but because I've done the inner work, when I find out about these things, I was like, oh, okay, well, sometimes it's disappointing, sometimes it's upsetting, but I'm just like, oh, okay. And I move on. Even when I found out myself about the Jesus story and about how he wasn't crucified, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Whereas, try and talk to like my dad, he still struggles with that. He's just like, because he's read a lot of stuff and he's learned a lot about different conspiracies and things like that as well. But when it comes to the Bible, oh no, it's like he won't go there because he's grown up Presbyterian. He's been going to church since he was born. He still goes to church every Sunday now. And during lockdown time, he would attend via Skype and stuff like that, so he's been very involved in the church. He used to sing in the choir. He's been an elder. He's very involved. So for him, he's so identified with it to find out that certain things aren't true. Is, I think he just can't go there at this point in time. And he might never. So.
And they've done a good job with that. That's what they do best, is manipulating people, especially their vulnerabilities. And because my mother was the same way. When I first started, I would try to talk to her. She would have an absolute emotional breakdown about these things. And it always struck me as odd. Now she's a little bit better. Now she's a little bit more open to believing that the Bible isn't actually the word of God. And that's what I say to people, like, oh, the Bible's the word of God. Show me your evidence that this is how do you know that the Bible's the word of God? What, because somebody told you? Because somebody told you it was over and over and over and over and over and over again growing up? That's called indoctrination and mind programming. That's a form of the MK, that's a form of that. To tell somebody something over and over and over and over again to the point where they believe the lie.
And we come from generations.
Yes. And other than that, you have no actual proof. There's no factual evidence that this is the word of God. You say that the Quran is not the word of God, that's the devil. Well, how do you know? Because they've been also indoctrinated that it's the word of Allah over and over and over and over and over. And it's just another form. It's just a different side of the same coin. Yeah. And so it is, and that opens up a bigger question to me, a bigger quandary to me, is I started to realize that people were defining God by a book, which really struck me as odd. Yeah, because as a kid, I always felt God outside of me. Like there were things that just kind of bumped heads with what I knew of God. And then I started realizing, are people not having like God experiences outside of like church? Because I've never had a God experience in church. Quite the opposite, actually. I've only had God experiences outside of church, in life, away on my yoga mat, away from the Bible. So
Yeah.
if you're defining God by a book, if you're limiting your perspective to God by a book, then we have a bigger problem.
And I think most people do. I mean, I'm very much like you. I had to go to church every Sunday, and I used to get a lot of social anxiety, and I hated going. And I would, I would just try and make up excuses to not go and say I wasn't feeling well and things like that, because I don't know. I felt very uncomfortable at church. It just didn't ever feel right with me. But I definitely believed in God. And I mean, I would ride to school on my bike and talk to God out loud. I look back and I'm just thought people must have thought I was nuts talking to myself. But, I've always had a relationship with God and always spoken to him, and same, but it's happened more for me outside in my everyday life rather than being at church. And obviously, like, I haven't been to church for a very long time because I've always felt uncomfortable
Yeah, same.
there. It's just never felt right. But I do feel like a lot of people, I mean, I can't talk for everyone, but I do think quite a few people probably do just on a Sunday or whatever day that they go to church, there they think about God and practice, their religion or whatever. But then in everyday life, they might not actually even be a part of their everyday life.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's supposed to be about. It's
No.
supposed to be about having a relationship with God every single day.
You don't need the Bible to have you don't need any books to have a relationship
No.
with God. That's ridiculous. And if you think that you have to have a book, then you've been programmed. That's part of your programming, to have a rule book. Look at the American Constitution, where they say that we all have certain inalienable rights given to us by our creator, right? So think about that for the Americans. That's not saying you need a book to tell you how your relationship with God should be. It's just a relationship. You have that right given to you that other people cannot. And it also, when I started really diving into the missing books of the Bible, 4 years ago, I realized that Jesus was not the real name, and that Jesus actually means like hail Satan. And it occurred to me, because growing up Protestant, Presbyterian as well, in my memories of church, we are born with God. Like, you don't have to invite God in. Like, God's already there. Like, as Todd says, God does not need you to believe in him in order for him to exist. God is already with you. God never leaves you. God is always there. So with that being said, when you're in church, which we know church comes from a demonic name, it comes from Kirk, which actually connects back to a demon whose goal is to hypnotize you and feed off of your soul. Speaking of selling your soul, that's what church means, you guys.
So what a
They're telling us. That's why it's not a temple. That's why it's called church, because you're going to church, you're going to the demon to be put under hypnosis so you can sell your soul. That's what church means. Don't believe me? Look it up for yourself. Do your research for yourself. When you baptize your children, what do? You put them in white. What is white? That's the color of human sacrifice. You're offering your babies to the demon to have oils or water put on them, which is exactly what the Canaanites did to Moloch.
Wow.
So as a parent, you're selling your child.
I'm so glad now that I never got my children christened.
When I found that out, I went through a huge, I was pissed because I had no choice. And my parents baptized me.
Yeah.
I was born February of 1983. They baptized me on Easter of 1983, Ishtar. My parents done fucked up. Like, they literally sold my soul as a child to a demon, and one of the most potent.
Wow.
Occultic.
I don't know when my parents got me christened, but I know that, obviously I was a baby. I just don't know how many months later it was.
As Presbyterians, we do it as babies, so we don't have memory of it, which is great in a lot of ways because we're not old enough to consent. So when I found that out, I went through I was angry. Then I sat down and I literally cut the cords and revoked that baptism. And I actually emailed the church I grew up in and told them I needed to do that for myself. Please remove me. I did not consent to this, and I do not want to be a part of this Satanism, basically.
Wow.
So I did that for myself, just to cut that, to say I do not consent. This was not my free will to have this done. I do not want to be a part of this satanic game. So you start to really study the church, and you're like, holy shit, like this is Satanism. Like this is Satanism. And then when you look at and I challenge people to read the Bible objectively, not subjectively. If you sit down and read that Bible objectively, you're going to see a totally different story.
Yeah.
And it's violent. And it's evil.
It's awful the way that people
Horrible.
are treated, and you know what God told them to do, and a lot of sacrificing and horrible.
Abraham was committing human sacrifices. Abraham was also participating in human, we'll say carpooling, because I can't say the T word. Abraham was in charge of unaliving sex workers.
Wow.
David was terrible. He was a worshiper of Moloch. So was Solomon, his son. Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, that was his mother. She had all of Solomon's older siblings unalived in order to put Solomon on the throne. Solomon was just like Mr. B. He was the Build Back Better guy of that time. He taxed, you know how Solomon, they say, oh, he was wise and rich. You know how Solomon got so rich? The same thing that we're seeing in the Doge reports now. Taxing the crap out of his people to the point where they were in poverty. Any of his opponents that challenged him, he would either have them unalived or exile them. He was constantly sacrificing, I have to be careful I say this, new humans, we'll say new humans, in the temple to Moloch. And that's who you want to, that's who you think is a good guy?
Yeah, and they're all made out to be such amazing people and the heroes of the stories. And it's like,
they're not.
They would do really messed up stuff.
But think about that, Paula. We live in a world of consent. So if Christianity is one of the biggest religions, if not the biggest religion in the world, all these people across the earth are going to church consenting and celebrating this behavior. So
without even realizing.
So that's why we have these islands now. That's why we have that park, that camping ground up in Northern California.
Because it's all been consented to.
Been consented to.
Wow, but people don't even realize.
They sold their soul. The people, so like you can't sit there and chastise the elite, but then go to church on Sunday and consent to it.
Yeah.
We're consenting to it. And if Jesus is not his name and God is already within you, then when your children pray to ask Jesus into their heart, God's already in their heart. Who are they inviting in?
Yeah.
What is invited in? And is that why Christians are the most violent people? I'm sorry, you guys. If you don't think Christians are violent, you are in cognitive dissonance. They are the most violent group. I have never been threatened by an Islamic person. I've never been threatened by a Jewish person. And I've come down pretty hard on the Torah. But I've never been threatened. I've always had respect. I've had some emails from some Jewish people thanking me for going through it. I've never been threatened by a Hindu. I've never been threatened by an atheist. But I have a file of unaliving threats from Christians.
That is so interesting. And they are the most judgmental.
Most judgmental. Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Most judgmental. And even amongst themselves. So for people watching that never grew up Christian, like even within the different denominations, you have my Jesus is better than your Jesus.
Yeah.
We're the only right flavor of Christianity. What?
Oh, and because there's so many branches there's Baptist and there's Seventh-day Adventist and there's,
Methodist,
Presbyterian and
Presbyterian.
Protestant, Roman Catholic, and oh my God, like, I mean, because like my dad, he's Presbyterian. He's always been Presbyterian, and that's where I was christened as, and that's where I always went with my dad. But my mum, on the other hand, my mum went to every different church you can think of. And she's still, and I think now she doesn't even go to church, because I think at the end what she was looking for wasn't there.
No. And that's what people, right? People get so addicted to this stuff because they're trying to fill a void in their own life. But the thing is nothing else can fill that void but you and your own relationship with God. That has nothing to do with anybody else. And that's why the church hates yoga, because yoga gives you the experience that you're looking for.
And it's interesting that they say that yoga is demonic, and the different sun salutations and stuff like that, and it's crazy, isn't it?
That's crazy. Think about that. So you think doing yoga poses is demonic? Well, what about dance? What about gymnastics? What about running? What about swimming? You're moving your body in shapes there too. So what the hell are you talking about? You sound like it.
Yeah, but to say that is worshiping, it's projecting what they're doing in the church.
You're worshiping the devil in the church. That's what's happening. It's all right there in front of you. Lucifer is the god of the Bible. It's said in the Bible. At the end of the Bible, it talks about this, that Lucifer is the god of the Bible. Lucifer. Who is Yahweh? Moloch.
Yeah. The whole Yahweh character is not a loving and all-loving God.
No.
Way.
No. And so when you get to the end of the Bible, you see that when basically we ascend, the real God will be restored. So the Bible says that, then who are you praying to?
Yeah.
It's in your Bible. It's there. Riddle me that, Batman. I didn't make that up. That's in your Bible. You got some explaining to do. And the fact that so this is the thing, what we're saying right now, if somebody actually was a Christian but had a real relationship with God, they would be able to hear what we're saying.
Yeah.
And take it in. But if someone has sold their soul to the church, and that's their self-identity, hearing this is like them experiencing a death.
Yeah.
So they're going to project out.
And I think, and that's what happened with me, because I had to go to church and everything, and then the Da Vinci Code came out, and I was like, oh my God, wow, this is interesting. And so then that just started my little journey down it all. But yeah, and so then for me, it was quite easy. I found it all fascinating and intriguing because I wasn't attached to the idea of church. But then again, I wasn't attached because I never felt comfortable there.
No.
It always just felt off for some reason.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And if you claim to be anti-censorship, then you need to be anti-censorship.
For everything.
For everything. And if you claim to be anti-censorship, but you want the books of the Bible that have been banned to stay censored, then you're lying. You're being dishonest because you aren't anti-censorship. You're for censorship.
Yeah.
You
can't just censor one area and not another.
Right? If you want only what you believe in to be allowed to be out there, then that's pro-censorship. But if you haven't sold your soul, if you have a sense of self and you're not attached to your own opinions, you realize that these are just subjective opinions that are subject to change, then you don't care. It's no skin off your back. If things are released, it's no skin off your back if people have a different opinion from you, because you understand that that's not your opinions, aren't who you are anyway.
Yes, exactly.
So that's selling your soul.
And opinions are entitled to change.
Yeah. All
as
opinions
we learn
change
and grow. Yep.
I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago.
No, me either.
So why are you expected to believe the same nonsense for your whole life? Why can't you? The people in history, if you go through history, the ones who have been censoring and book burning have never been the good guys.
No.
So now
but also, I kind of feel like it's just a bit of kind of laziness. Like, this might be not very nice of me to say, but it's kind of like, well, it's easy to go to church, to show up and to have a passage of the Bible read to you and explained by the pastor or the minister or whoever is reading it to you. And then you can say, okay, yeah, tick, you know, I showed up. I'm a good person. I'm going to go to heaven now. And it's like, but that's not how it works. You know, it's how you behave. It's how you think about people, how you treat people in your everyday life. It's,
Yeah.
you know, that's what matters. That's what counts. It's not whether you show up to church every Sunday or not. I mean,
And I can hear the Christians now saying, well, the blood of Jesus washes my sins away. That's Luciferianism.
yeah.
Coating yourself with another person's blood, that's what they do on those islands.
Yeah.
Listen to what you're actually saying. Listen to what you're saying. God loves you. God, you do not need to be in a cult, in a high controlled religion to have God's love.
And that's part of the programming, is that we're this horrible, wretched thing that has to be forgiven in order to be loved. I mean, that's horrible.
It's horrible.
We are loved just, I mean, when your baby, like when people have a baby, when you held your nieces and nephews in your arms, did you think, oh, what a horrible, disgusting, wretched thing that, you know, needs its sins forgiven? You just looked at it and thought, oh my God, it's beautiful and innocent and just so much love, you know?
They're the only people in the world that have pooped on me and peed on me, and I don't care. You know, because I love, you know, as babies, I remember one time my oldest nephew had like projectile diarrhea, and I was changing.
Oh no.
Right. You know, as baby, he was an infant, and that's just how it is. I didn't go, oh, disgusting. Everywhere. And Charlie was the first little boy in our family, so we had to learn real fast what a TT tent was, because it's like a hose. And I didn't get, you know, as his aunt, I didn't get pooped on and peed on and go, oh, you disgusting thing. I'm not even, no, I finished cleaning him, put him in a secure position, and then went and cleaned myself. Because that's a baby, and that's just, but if you had that freedom of religion, that freedom of thought spiritually, then the establishment would have no control over you. When they put you in that state of fear to the point where you will sell your soul and you'll self-identify with the story they're selling you. And I'm sorry, if you are aware of the controllers of the world, but you somehow think that the biggest religion in the world is not a part of then that's a level of stupid that I don't even know if I can even touch, because that's just stupidity at that point. Like, that's like lacking the biggest common sense. Like, of course the Illuminati is in the church. Of course it is. It's one of the biggest religions out there.
It's huge.
Do you really think the Illuminati is going to allow the Word of God to be the best-selling book in the world?
Yeah.
Common sense here. If the Bible is the Word of God, why do the Windsors own the copyright to the Bible?
Yeah.
You can't copyright something you didn't create. You can't, it's not, I told this story before, but back when Ashtanga started to get big in the Southeast, there was a teacher here, a yoga teacher in Atlanta, who wasn't an authorized Ashtanga teacher, but was trying to teach it. So he went to the judge to try to copyright the primary series, and the judge laughed him out of the court and said, this is a very old, he did research on the product. He was like, this is a very old practice that has been around for thousands of years. You didn't create this. Therefore, you can't own the copyright.
Wow.
So I'm telling you guys, why, again, do the Windsors own
They have the
copyright to the Bible?
Yeah, that case solved there. That just says it all.
So every time you purchase a Bible, they're getting the payback. They're getting paid for that. Why, again, do the Windsors, and if you don't believe me, look it up. You can look up copyright. It's very simple. Just look it up for yourself. Look it up for yourself. Don't believe me. Look it up for yourself. Why does the royal family own the copyright to the Bible? I don't know. Why do you think that is, Paula? I don't know. Why do you
wonder? I do wonder.
Is it because they wrote it? Their ancestor created it? So therefore it's, the Coca-Cola family, because Coca-Cola is based out of Atlanta, they still own the copyright to the formula of Coca-Cola. The original creators are no longer with us, but the family still owns the copyright. They inherited it.
Yep. And it's so clever, really, if you think about it.
So clever. So clever. To hypnotize people, get them to sell their soul, and then create fear, to create an us versus them with people who are different. When I opened up my foundation in India to help the slum kids, and I came back, I had a few months between that trip and my next trip to India, and I was trying to get my nonprofit status, and I was trying to raise money. And two times, I had one person refuse to donate because why would I help a bunch of little Hindu children? They're just going to hell anyway. These are children, 5, 6, 7 years old, living in poverty, who I'm trying to get into a safe house so they don't get carpooled by the slumlords. And a person who claims to be a Christian, most loving religion in the world, right? Prince of Peace, right? Tell me, why would I donate money to help a bunch of little Hindu children? They're just going to go to hell anyway.
Oh, that's so sad.
So sad. Another person told me that they would only donate to me if I would witness the word of God to them in the slums. And I'm looking at this person saying,
oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
They need clothing.
We're trying to get them out. Every time I go into the slums, I have to have guards because I'm putting myself at danger too.
Wow.
If I get too deep into the slums as a white person, I might not come out. So I have to have people with me, locals with me, to stop me. And we have to work this meticulously. When we take a child and move them to a safe house, we have to do it in ways that the slumlords won't see or follow us. And you're worried about some bullshit propaganda? These kids haven't had medical treatment. These kids are malnourished. These children literally have nowhere to go to the bathroom. You know that saying, don't have a pot to piss in? They literally do not have an actual pot to piss in. They have to go to the bathroom like an animal outside. Their house is made of trash. And your arrogant, narcissistic, psychotic ass cannot even see the humanity in these children. Because your soul has been sold to a demon named church. And at this point, because of that, because you've sold your soul, you can't see the soul in these children. That was my first experience. And at that point, I was already kind of out of the church anyway, but I didn't have really a problem with it. But when I had that experience, I thought, holy shit, this is the epitome of evil. And then when I started to study the missing books of the Bible, I was like, of course the Christians are evil. This is on brand. No. Their religion is based on a human sacrifice and consuming a human body and drinking human blood.
And all of the good, helpful information has all just been taken out.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't Jesus say, love each other as I have loved you? Yeah. Are you loving a Hindu child when you say, oh, they're just going to go to hell anyway, so therefore I'm not going to try to help this child? But yet save the children, right? But yet we want to save the children, but not those children, because they're not white Christians. Yeah. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So when Todd talked about that, it like resonated with me, and I could tell by you, because you're like, oh, like it just makes sense, doesn't it? Like it clicks.
Yeah, it really does. It's really, really fascinating, but so helpful to understand that as well. And just to be careful to not get attached to any particular ideas.
And he even said that you can entertain things. Yeah. Like the whole a pyramid thing that's coming out. What did he say? He got excited for like 15 minutes. And then he was like, oh, this is bullshit. This is just another false, these things. Yeah. Having that discernment. One of my favorite sayings is take everything with a grain of salt. Just take everything, even what I say, as a grain of salt.
Yeah, everything.
Don't attach to anything, but be open to everything, to explore it, to examine it, As Aristotle says, it's a sign of an intelligent mind when you can entertain an idea without accepting it.
Yeah.
That's, speaking of, in that same reading with JFK that I was going to do, it talked about Elvis Presley. Everybody thinks Elvis Presley is still alive. And they think that he's that pastor. Guys, he's not alive. He had a heart attack, according to the Cassiopeians.
I even came across someone saying that he's Trump and put two photos of Elvis and Trump next to each other and did all the similarities and stuff. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's interesting. I don't think so, but.
And think about that too. Like, that's also service to self. So selling your soul to a false belief is service to self. Also, believing in elitism is service to self. So to believe that there are particular bloodlines, that's what the establishment believes, right? That there are particular bloodlines that are destined to rule the earth, that and in the truther community, we see that as well, that there are particular bloodlines, there are particular people, and only these people, because of this made up bloodline, can do this job. And we just got to sit around and wait and be rescued because we're helpless. That's a pecking order. And that's not what the light believes. On the light, we're all equal. So Trump has his role to play. That's his role, and we can respect him for it. But we also have our own roles to play too.
Yeah, we need to do the work for ourselves.
And we're all equally valuable. His life is no less or more important than our lives. No less or more valuable than our lives. And so why can't Trump just be Trump? Why can't he just be a guy from New York?
Yeah, why does he have to be some ex-famous person?
It's crazy thinking. It's crazy making. And so that pastor who's pretending to be Trump and grifting off of this has a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah,
he's lying to people. He's not Elvis. He's not. But he's playing on this. Mr. Trump hasn't been playing on this. He's never fed into these
ideas,
rumors. Yeah, he doesn't have time to deal with that. Melania is not Diana.
No,
she's not. She's Melania. And if you are so delusional as to think this, then you have sold your soul. But the good news is, as we started off talking about your shadow work, is you can get it back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's correct. It's not a done deal, right? Like, you can pull it back.
And knowledge is what helps with that. Learning about all these different things and doing the inner work is what helps you to not, to get your soul back, so that you're not caught up in all these different crazy ideas and attached to them. And that's one of the best ways to figure out, is if you are attached to an idea and if somebody says something about it and you're getting triggered, then you're like, oh, okay, I need to go there, because if I'm having this overreaction to something, then there's something there.
What Paul and I are saying are just words. Why are you projecting violence onto that? They're just words. Yeah. So have you self-identified with something that's not true?
And I mean, you were just sharing missing books from the Bible, and the attacks that you have received is insanity.
So don't come in the comments saying, oh, Christians are nice people. From my experience, no, they're not. They scare me. Actually, out of all the people in the world, the Christians actually scare me the most.
Yeah, that blows me away that you said that all the other religions, you've never had any issues with any of them.
Never. And I've come down hard on the Torah because it's the same with the missing books, like the missing Old Testament. And not once have I gotten threats from a Jewish person. In fact, the opposite. So riddle me that, Batman. But the thing is, Paula, I think with me and all my years of yoga study is and that's what yoga study is, right? I can recognize that an idea, a religion that people believe in is not that's not who the people actually are, even though they identified with it. So I can say, this is bad, and I know why you're acting this way because you've identified, but I still can separate the fact that there's hope for you.
Yeah.
Of course, correct. Whereas I think I remember when I was studying like weight issues, I did a whole thing on Way Down when the person died that did Way Down years ago. And the highest percentage of obesity is in the Christian faith.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we're imbalanced, and in this whole write-up, it's because a lot of Christian, especially women, are taught to suppress their questions, suppress their truth, suppress the doubt, and pretend. I have to pretend to be happy in order to go to heaven, in order to not be attacked by this high controlled satanic religion. And so they get overweight because the body is always going to keep the score. The body is always going to tell you when there's an imbalance. So isn't that interesting that of
Yes.
all the religions in the world, Christianity has the highest rate of obesity?
That is fascinating. Wow.
Body keeps the score.
Mm-hmm.
The body keeps the score. And that weight, so that's literal, the weight of the expectations of this religion is literally manifesting on their bodies as weight.
Yeah. The pressure of it.
And the body is being...
Because I felt that pressure as a little girl, just, you know, having to be so good all the time. Not allowed to swear, not allowed to do anything wrong, not allowed to have bad thoughts about anyone, not allowed to just...
Don't question
that. I was terrified. I was so scared of going to hell. I was so scared.
I mean, I went through a phase where I was scared of that too.
Yeah, it sounded so horrible. I was just like, I don't want to go there. I'll do whatever it takes.
That I wasn't worth, like, you are worthy. It doesn't matter. You're worthy. If you're breathing, you're worthy.
Mm-hmm.
You're only going to go to hell if you go service to self, and that's what you're picking, because that's the service.
That's really interesting because, so a few years back, I read this book called The Nice Girl Syndrome by Beverly Engel, I believe. And man, that book's hard to read because she covers a lot of things that happen to girls because they're nice girls, so they're easier for certain people to pry upon. And they're the ones that horrible things tend to happen to. Basically, that's really interesting because the church brings out so many nice girls and nice guys, and they're the perfect candidates for predators to go for because they don't go for the confident kids. They don't go for the kids that are, you know, or the people that are out there and loud and going to stand up for themselves. No, they go for the quiet ones, the well-behaved ones, the ones that aren't going to say anything or do anything.
Because that's martyrdom.
And so they're just grooming.
Yeah. They're martyring because they believe they've been taught that they have to basically be a doormat, and that they have to give of themselves. And Jesus, so we have to protect the abuser, right? Because Jesus loves the abuser, and it's my fault. And that's martyrdom. And we know martyrdom is so being the nice girl all the time. And there's a difference. We've talked about this offline, I think, Paula. There's a difference between being kind and being nice.
Yes.
I feel like I'm a kind person, but I'm not a nice person. I'm going to have tough love. I'm going to tell you the truth, but I'm a kind person. Nice.
Well, that's something I'm really working on is over the last few years is I've always been a kind person, but too much niceness and too much letting people walk all over me. And I'm done with that, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, and I didn't even realize how manipulative it is to be nice. People think that they're being nice and that they're being good, but they're actually not. It's actually a form of manipulation to get people to like you because you need to be liked. When you don't do any inner work on yourself, you need to be liked by everybody. And, you know, nice people are not trustworthy because they'll say one thing to one person and then they'll completely change their opinion for somebody else. And I know because I've done that. And then afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I go against what I've just said?
It's a form of fawning too. So fawning, so they put people in when you're young in a traumatic situation, and you're either going to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yeah.
And so they get the nice girl syndrome is a form of fawning. So you're doing it for self-preservation.
Absolutely. I did it to survive. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I've got 4 siblings. I've got an older brother, older sister, myself, and my younger sister. My other siblings all fought back. They did not take my mum's crap. But me, oh, I'm sorry, Mum, I'll fix this, I'll do this for you, I'll do that for you. And I was always good, 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 nice, nice, nice all the time, just to survive. But then that has not served me in my being as an adult and a teenager.
But look at it this way too. So for you and for everybody watching this, because Todd even spoke, we've all done this. We've all had these, but that's the thing about being here, right? Is that we can course correct. And sometimes you have to fuck up like that in order to have the wisdom, because knowledge is learned through books. Wisdom is learned through experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes certain characteristics, certain patterns can't be broken unless you've actually experienced, have the wisdom of why they don't work. And that's what you need, that discomfort, in order to change. And that's why he says to go service to others. You only have to be 51% service to others. That's a huge margin.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Of messing up, right? There's a huge margin of like course correcting. And the minute you've course correct, it kind of starts to release that karma. Yeah. So that's why I think the law of one is so important to study anyway. And I'm telling you, like, you guys, like, and I love how you asked Todd that question. Like, I can't remember how you asked it. Like, has no understanding the law of one helped you during this time? And he goes, yeah, I've stayed grounded. I haven't attached to things. I'm not as emotional because I understand that there's a bigger story at play here. And you know, and when you know the playbook, it doesn't mean you still don't get fooled from time to time.
Yeah, of course, but you're able to step back and see the bigger picture. You're not so caught up in the drama right in the middle. Yeah.
Right. So how clever of the Illuminati. Some of us woke up in 2020, especially some of us before, but that was a big wake up. So they knew that there's going to be a backfire, that certain people were going to be like, whoa. And so they had another plan in place. They had another plan in place to catch the ones like us that were like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
To give us hope that, oh, it's okay because the white hats are in charge.
Yeah. Yep.
Are they?
Yeah, because it doesn't really seem like it.
Life's pretty tough. There's people are struggling. People are going homeless. Like,
there's still wars going on. There's still people that are being unalived every single day, and
look at what's
horrible.
happening with the Tesla car dealerships.
Oh, what's happening with them?
Here in America, a lot of the progressive people are now committing acts of, trying to think of a word. I don't want to say the T word. Nightmarish acts.
Oh.
By putting stuff
Whoa.
In dealerships.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So it's innocent people could be just walking by.
Oh no.
But they've self-identified too, right? Like, they've self-identified with this story that this is Orange Man bad, and this is, so they're also self-identifying. Just like the people in the truther community are self-identifying with this fictitious story that no one is who they say they are, and this is all a big movie. They've self-identified, and the people over here have self-identified with the opposite story, and so we have chaos. And that's what the Illuminati feeds off. So the people who are awake are now not going to fight back because they think, oh, we're just going to sit back because this is all just a movie, and let's just
and let's just play it out, watch it play out,
and not
so
doing
anything to help the situation.
And I think it affects those of us in Western worlds more because we do live comfortable lives. So even in times of stress, when people are struggling financially, we still have a roof over our head. We still have a bed to sleep in, food on the table. So we're not even, so it's easier to have cognitive dissonance.
It is, yeah.
Where if you were in a third world country or a developing country, you might wake up faster that this truther community is also fake news and propaganda. Not saying that Mr. T is that. Actually, the Cassiopeans, when I was going back and reading a lot with him, and they like him, but he's not the saint. He's not the saint that we've made him out to be. Like, he's not perfect. And I never thought that he was. Like,
no,
he's still
I've never thought he's a perfect person, but I do believe that, you know, he's meant to come in and he's meant to disrupt things. He's meant to and be like, look, this is not working. This system. Changes need to be made.
Somebody, one of the guys in the forum, the last video I did, the one that said that his job was to come in and to shine a light on the corruption. That's it. That's it.
And he's only one person.
And that's what gets me.
What do people expect him to do? He's only one human being. He's not.
Narcissism, the entitlement. I'm like, bro,
he can only do so much.
Yeah. He is not worried about you. He's worried about his family, his children, his grandchildren, his wife. That's what his main concern is, not you. And to think, for you to think that for some reason you're a priority is a level of delusion that I don't even want to touch, because dear God, like, have some respect for him and the fact that he's doing his part. We also have to do
ours. Absolutely.
We can't just
it's a massive job. You can't just expect one person to just solve everything.
No, and this is going to go on for a while.
It's going to take time.
And as Todd said so eloquently to you guys, like, and I've said this before, no one's capitulated.
Yeah, and they're not going to.
They're not going to. That's not how they are. Like, that's why you need to read the Law of One and understand it, because they are on the service to self path. They have picked that path with their own free will. That's what they want to do. Just like we're picking the service to others path, we had that freedom of choice as well.
Yeah.
They're not going
to. We've chosen our path and we're sticking to it. We're not going to give up no matter what.
And
of course it makes sense. They're not going to give up.
They're not going to give up either. They're gonna, as Todd said, like, there is nothing that somebody could do to make me drop my moral compass.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that they're just going to drop theirs?
Exactly. Yeah.
They've done far worse crimes than we even know of. So you think right now at the 11th hour they're just going to give it all up?
Yeah.
Because if they capitulate now, they're so out of polarity that they would have to come back and do third density again. They wouldn't just be able to flip positive. So why they're not going to?
There's no benefit for them to do that.
The only time they're ever going to surrender, what we would say surrendering, is if it benefits them.
Yeah.
In a selfish way. Other than that, they're going to fight till the bitter end. And we have to know that and accept that. Accept this predicament.
And be strong so that we can deal with it.
This is the game. This is the game we're in. And so I think that this is and I think that's why the Cassiopeans were like, girl, we ain't gonna talk about JFK. We're gonna talk about this, because we are at this crux. Now, Todd talked about how fourth density is already here. We just have to step into it. So I think when he says that, what he means is we're still acting in third density.
Yeah, we're still thinking and acting. Yeah.
And that's why they're still here. However, if we all just started focusing on service to others, we could step into that. It's just like opening the door and walking in. And that's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on people to actually, like, wake up. Like, the truth. And that's the thing too, I think, Paula, I think, is even if you identify as awake, you sold your soul.
Yep. Because that's another identity, isn't it?
It's another false identity, because third density is not the density of wisdom. It's not the density of knowing. So you're never going to be fully awake. And so if you know that there's always going to be things that you're unaware of.
Yeah.
You're able to see clearer. And just because you're awake to one thing doesn't mean you're awake to everything. When you start identifying with being awake, when you have conflicting information coming in where it shows you where you're still asleep, you're going to react violently because you self-identify with being awake.
Yeah.
Even with the bippity boppity boo bops. We've talked about this before. There are no placebos, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think they affect people differently based on what comes up to them, and also what your beliefs are as well. I think, the people out there that really truly believe that they needed that to save their lives, and it's probably having quite a positive effect on their body. Yeah. Because anything you consume, anything that you put inside your body, if you believe it's good for you, then it's going to have a positive effect on your body. If you believe it's bad and you have a lot of guilt surrounding it, like maybe drinking or eating junk food or sugar or whatever, if you're feeling guilty about it, then that's going to have a negative effect on your body because you're feeling negative about it. So it's like, it's very complex, you know?
So nuanced. And so for people who believe that these were placebos, that is a service to self thought. That is not a service to others' thought. That is a selfish service to self thought, because you cannot interrupt someone's karma and you cannot interrupt someone's free will.
Yeah.
And so if this product is available, and let's say Paula's a nurse and I go to Paula and I want it, and I think I need it, and then Paula
decides, say, no, you can't have it because it's bad for you.
To trick me and give me a placebo, then Paula has just interrupted my karma, and she has just implemented her will onto me.
Yeah.
So, and Paula would never do that, right? So we have to back off and let people, you can warn your friends and family and say, hey, have you seen this? But if they still decide to go get it, you can't stop that. That's their choice. That you cannot, and if you try to interrupt their karma, you are creating more karma for yourself, right? Because souls have soul contracts, and there's certain lessons. We all come to earth for certain lessons. My soul came to earth to refine certain things. Paula's soul came to earth to refine certain things. And so if we have a lesson plan of experiences, because again, knowledge comes from book study, wisdom comes through experience. So if we have set up certain experiences in our lives, if our soul set it up that way for us to have that friction, to develop that wisdom, and someone comes in and takes that away from us, then that person has just gone service to self. Because they've then just said, I know better than you. I know better than God. I know better than what. No, you don't. You don't know that person's soul contract. You don't know. That person could have had their soul could have had a very important lesson to learn getting this.
Yeah, absolutely. They might have chosen for that to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's not our business.
And even when Mr. T started supporting it, even taught, we know that as we go into fourth density, some people can't come because they're not ready yet. Their souls aren't ready to harvest yet. They were never going to come, but they came here at this time just to get more experiences. So maybe next life they can harvest fourth density. So they know, their souls knew that there was going to come a point where they were going to have to leave the earth. Right?
Yeah.
Because now it was not time for them. They needed to go. And so the reason why Todd thinks Mr. T promoted this was because those souls that agreed to exit at a certain time, that could have been their exit.
Yeah.
And if you take that from them, then they have to exit another way. And that might have been a more horrific way that you caused.
Absolutely. That's interesting, isn't it? To look at it that way.
So you don't know. You are not. That's what drives me crazy. That's manipulation, right? To pretend like what you're doing is that didn't the Yahtzee say for the common good? Didn't the communists say the common? For you to really try to control, that's an act of trying to control somebody else.
Yeah.
And trying to control somebody else, and especially in a manipulation way to make it seem like you're just being a good person, is so service to self. It's so service to self.
And that's another trap of being a nice person. Oh, I'm just trying to help people, but that's not your business. It's not your business. And it's very hard. It's very hard to do that when you love somebody and you care about somebody and you want to do what you think is best. But it's so important just to step back and just say, look, because you don't know what is best for that person. It's very hard. And I get why people struggle with it. But it is important to know this, and it's important to understand that we have to let people follow their karma and do,
It's hard. I mean, I was filming with people that are now totally handled by controlled opposition. And when I figured out, I reached out to these people that, hey, this particular person is controlled opposition, and they didn't believe me. And after that, I have to let them experience their karma. And I see that one particular person I used to film with, I see him now and he looks awful. He looks like he's dying. But I know that that's his karma, and that his soul has to experience being wrapped up with controlled opposition for some reason. I tried to warn him, but then you have to back off and be like, this is obviously your karma. Like, this is what your soul wanted to go through to learn a lesson. And so you have to, and that's hard to do. It's hard to watch somebody, but at some point you have to step back. Like I don't want this. So think about that. I don't want the bippity boppity boo bop. I don't think any of us watching this channel did. Now imagine if someone forced you to get it. It's the exact same thing if I did want it and someone wouldn't give it to you. It's the exact same. Your free will is being messed with, and that's not okay. And so we have to be very, very, very careful. And that's what makes this, again, very nuanced, very complex, and why it's so important to do the work, your own work, and to read the law of one and to figure all this out so that you make the best choices, that you're not manipulating yourself either, that you're not lying to yourself about.
And I wonder how that works with children though, because it's complicated because I mean, obviously as a parent you want to keep your children safe, and so there's certain boundaries and things you need to put in place. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if the Cassiopeians have put anything in at some point, you know, about
It's hard because the Cassiopeians do say that we as children start collecting karma from the moment we're born.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is really no, but then in the law of the land, we do have consent laws for children. So I think with children, there is a lot of gray and probably a lot of rules of forgiveness with children, you know, because in the common law, the law of man, we do have particular, like an 8-year-old can't decline one of these if his parents going to give him this. But then you also have to remember that 8-year-old soul agreed to go through that.
Yeah.
But then again, he's not consenting. So there are some laws of forgiveness within the law of one where it's complicated. Like every time you walk outside, if you step on a bug, that service to self, you just killed a bug.
Yeah.
But there's laws of forgiveness there because you didn't know, you didn't see it. You can't watch everywhere you step. Yeah. So there are, and that's why it's really important to read the law of one so you understand the laws of forgiveness where things are kind of out of your control. Versus when they are in your control. And we can control the way we behave. We can control the selling of the soul. We can control not smashing our soul, you know. And that's a good thing to say. Is this truther trying to get me to sell my soul? Like that's a good question to ask.
Yeah.
You're trying to get me to sell my soul. Or is this truther on the internet just showing their research and just sharing what they found?
Yeah. And then it's up to you to make your own opinion.
Yeah. So it's up to you to do that, to do your own research and to do your own digging into this so that you can make these decisions for yourself and to really just understand the rules of the game. That's what it's really about, right? Understand the rules of the game.
Yeah. And you know, I think it's amazing that we'll have these to refer to learn, to understand the rules of the game, because once you understand that, then it really changes your perspective on life, doesn't it? And yeah, as we've learned, the Bible certainly is not the rules of the game.
No, don't be like Abraham. Please don't be like Abraham. He was not
a nice way to be.
He was not a good dude, man. Neither was Solomon. Like he was not a good dude. But he had a harem of like 600 women.
Whoa.
You really concubines. Need I explain what that is?
Yeah.
That not a good dude, not a good dude. So I would but I know I cut a longer interview with you and Todd that I'm going to place at the end of the video here for people to watch the longer interview, because you just uploaded it, didn't you? Todd's interview.
Yes. Yeah, it's up on the website. Yeah.
Up on that. And I want to clarify too, because I had it. So I'm going to continue to go through the Cassiopeian transcripts on my channel for an indefinite amount of time. There's 31 years worth of material. That's going to continue being on YouTube, but we are going to be doing a course over on the Esoteric Academy where I'm going to look at the different Riding the Wave series, the Law of One, and I'm going to kind of interpret it in the yoga perspective as well. So that's my work for this course, combining these different philosophies and theories. But the Cassiopeian transcripts will always be on YouTube, free for us to look at, because they are free, and all the links, guys, are in the description box below. I'm not gatekeeping this. Every video I put a link so you have access to the Cassiopeian forum. Like it's there for you. Now I will say, Paula, I said this in my last video, but I'll say it again just in case. Somebody commented that they brought the third book, volume 3 of the Cassiopeians, and they were a little confused by it. So what I would suggest you guys is read this first, Riding the Wave. And there's a whole series. So these books explain, Laura explains the Cassiopeians. She explains how everything is explained for you. And also, if you do not understand, if you have no knowledge of the Law of One, the raw material, it might not make sense to you. So you probably need to read the Law of One too, to understand the template. And even if you don't feel like you have time, I have so many videos on my channel of the Law of One. You can just go to the search bar and just type in Law of One and see all my videos that pull up. If you need just a brief overview of the Law of One, just to have a better understanding of service to self, service to others. I mean, the minute it was introduced to me, I just all of a sudden was like, oh, that makes sense. It just, you know, and so that information is available. Yes, the form is free. These books are not free. I had someone ask me, you have to order these books because these are Laura's books, but the forums are free. So, and again, you guys, I'm going to reiterate it. Thinking that somebody owes you servitude for free is a service to self trait.
Yeah, because I mean, Laura has put so much work.
31 years, over 31 years.
So much work.
Right. And so it takes energy. Even for like our platform, you know, we have very cheap prices. We're doing it as cheap as we can to be of service to other people, but it's an energy exchange.
Yeah, because a lot of work goes into it, getting it all set up and putting the videos together, creating the content, editing, everything.
The administrative side is, and so, you know, as Paul and I are putting a lot of effort into this, and so we have to have that energy replenished, just like you have. So you give us energy, we give you energy. It's an energy exchange. Only on the negative side do they practice vampirism and enslavement, where they just take like a vulture and not return it. So if you are somebody who is delusional and thinks that all spirituality should be free, that's a service to self trait. There is an exchange of energy. You know, back in India in the olden days, when little boys wanted to learn yoga, but they couldn't afford it, they would have to live with the guru and be the guru's servant. Clean the house, do the chores. That was the energy exchange. There's always an energy exchange.
And it's like that in ashrams as well, isn't it? Like, you know, everybody participates in helping with cleaning the place and preparing the food and all of that. So yeah, that's just
so it's not free. It's not free, right? It's you are paying for it. And the person giving you the service isn't, because they're returning that by giving you. So I just wanted to.
But I feel like there's more appreciation that way, because we don't always appreciate things that are just handed to us.
Right. Yeah. I have to pay when I go to India. I have tuition that I have to pay.
Yeah.
You're not going to go into Yogashala and not have to pay a tuition, a drop in, a monthly card. That's just how it is, because you are taking that teacher's time, and the teacher wants to do it. We want to help you, but we can't help you if we are not making money to pay the bills, to keep the lights on. Yeah.
Because then they would have to do something else to earn money, and then nobody would be getting that wonderful experience. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win.
So our prices are really low, you guys. Obviously, it's $25 for just the exercise classes, but for an extra $15 a month, $40 a month, you're getting like all the courses, all the meditations, all the interviews, all the exercise classes, the live calls, the live classes. We've got some exciting things up our sleeve that we're not going to talk about yet, that's coming in the future, that we talked about before we were filming. And, you know, I will say
we're continuously growing.
Yes. And we're continuously learning and trying to make it better and refine it more and more and more. And, you know, it's for $40 a month, you get all this stuff. You know, for AYA, our Shala, for unlimited monthly, unlimited, which most people do because they come every day, it's $160 a month. So you're getting this for only $40 a month, and you get to do it in the privacy of your own home. You don't have to,
at your own pace.
Your own pace. You can. So for those people who are insecure, you like nobody's watching you. You can put it on your cell phone when you're traveling. You know, you can put your headphones in and listen to the courses. And so you're getting this is thousands of dollars worth of courses and stuff that, you know, and it's there forever. So like once it's up, you know, if you take a course in the Shala, it's like we have David Gree coming this weekend. He's just going to be here for this weekend. So people pay all this money to take it, but then he goes. And so you just have your memories.
Yeah.
With these courses, you can take a course.
Refer back to them anytime you want.
Back to it. Yeah. So yes, you guys, we'd love to have you guys over there. And you do get 7 days of a free trial too. So we give
you can figure out if it's for you, and if it's not, then that's fine. You just cancel.
Yeah. It's no big deal. So, but I'm excited about what's coming up, you guys. Is there anything else? Do you have any information? Anything else you want to share, Paula?
I can't really think of anything at the top of my head, but I really love this chat tonight. It was really, well, tonight for me, morning for you. But yeah, it's just so fascinating, all those discoveries, and I'm blown away. It's also especially just thinking about how the church has literally been grooming people to be nice people.
It's
Like,
service to self. It's just totally service to self. It's what it is. So
it's
yeah.
mind blowing, isn't it? But
Yeah.
so amazing that we have such an amazing community of people that on YouTube and Rumble where we can connect with you all and learn all of this together, because I think the more that we learn this amazing information, the more we are empowering ourselves, and we can fight against this, you know, but we need this knowledge.
Absolutely. It's time. And I think the Cassiopeians are with us, you guys. And again, it's not, and I'll say too, I know I said this in my last video, I don't own the Cassiopeian transcripts. I've had many people reach out to me about wanting to do it on there. If you want to do it on your channel too, do it.
Go for it.
I can't go over all 31 years worth of transcripts. Yeah. Too much.
You're going to be here for a long time.
Right. So I'm basically just looking through things, finding interesting things. We're going to be skipping around to dates. I found a really interesting one about 2001, the thing that happened in 2001.
Ooh.
So I need to sit down with Todd to go through it, because there's some things that I'm a little confused about that they say. So I want to sit down with him because he knows it, so he can kind of talk me through it. So I have my head around what they're saying, because it's actually not what we think it is. It was shocking when I read that. I was like, oh.
Oh, wow. And if that one can't be on YouTube, then we can always put it on the website and on the other platform.
Right. So that's another, thank you for saying that. So Paula has created a free page on the Esoteric Academy, you guys. So anytime I have a potent video, or she has a potent video that can't be on YT, we'll put it on Rumble, but also the Esoteric Academy. So you have two places that you can watch it. Because I know that Rumble's been acting up a little bit, and I know that people
and also some countries can't access it. So then our website is available to anyone and everyone all over the world. So then you can always just watch it on there, and it's ad free on there as well.
Exactly. So I'll put those links anytime I have a video that cannot be on YT. I'll put those links down there for you guys too, so you can go watch it on the other R platform as well. So so yeah, and guys, yeah. So I actually when I read the 2001 particular transcript, I was like, oh,
wow.
I mean, we were right. It's not what they told us it was, but it's not actually who we think it is. It's another group. And so we're wrong in who we think did it.
Interesting.
So I need to actually sit down with Todd to like go through the transcript, because I have some questions that I'm not understanding what they're saying. And and I said something to him last night, and he was like, oh my God, it's been forever since I've looked at 2001. So he's going to sit down with me and go through it with me so I can get a better perspective before we look at it together on the show. So yeah, but that's
exciting.
I know. I know. Maybe we can do that one together, Paula. Maybe next Thursday or something.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, to look and see what's actually going on, because that's also like we were kind of right. But we weren't actually right on who we think pulled it off. It's not who you think it is.
Woo, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just say the person who was our president at that time actually didn't know that was going to happen. Even though there's that portrait of him throwing a paper airplane, you know, now I'm wondering, is that a real portrait? Or is that a false to get us thinking something that isn't true? Because and that always bothered me, because the video clip of him in a classroom talking to those kindergartners, when someone whispers in his ears, the look on his face, I always say I don't think he knew. Because the look on his face, you can't fake that. And the Cassiopeians say he didn't know. He actually didn't know that was going to happen. So don't even believe the things the truthers are telling you guys. Do your own research. Listen to your own gut. So, yeah. So anyway, we're teasing it. We'll look at it next week.
Let's do that next week. Awesome.
I have my head around everything, so that we can have a better conversation where I'm not sitting here going, I don't even know what that fucking means. So I can get my head around it. Because I mean, Todd says he's not an expert, but listen, Paula, he is. Like, he's been studying this for so long, he can recall.
He's just humble.
Yeah, he's very humble, very humble. So anyway, you guys, well, we're gonna, I guess, exit out with a longer clip of the interview. And it's up already on the Esoteric Academy. Is it under the Law of One playlist? It's not under the interview playlist, is it? It's under a new playlist?
No, I made up its own little section because we're going to be doing a whole series. So
yes. Yeah. So anyway, you guys, well, thanks for chatting with me this morning, Paula. This was fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. And thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Then you have to see it through. So you're stuck in the cycle, and you're redoing there, because the fallen angels are us. When they talk about the fallen angels, that is us. We are the fallen angels.
Right.
That's
we're
how
the fallen angels.
We're up there in another realm in our innocence. And then the Lizzies, as they call them, said, hey, you all want to try this? There are people up here that do certain things. Like they even said how some, major, social media influencers are undergrounders. Sometimes they know that they are, sometimes they don't know they are. I mean, there's a lot of channeling out there. But it's good to understand what, understand how to recognize legitimate channeling from not so legitimate. Or I'll see certain things in the media, or certain things happening in the world, and it'll bring up a memory of like, oh, the Cassiopeians or raw material, they talked about that. Then maybe I'll go in and dig a little bit, and then it'll bring up all this information that I have, and it may be a little disorganized, but eventually I can sort of piece it together and come to a greater understanding of the material, but also, more importantly, the situation that we're seeing unfold in the world.
And do you think that's really helped you to stay grounded and calm while we've kind of have all of this craziness going on in the world?
Yeah, and how I haven't been caught in this whole thing of, oh, it's a movie just playing out, oh, it's already done, oh, the elite controllers or whatever, they've already surrendered, and we're just have to play this out for the population. It's like bullshit. Like it lacks a foundational understanding of the service to self path. They're never going to give up. Never. And so understanding these foundational, fundamental things about both sides is so important. And that's why the Cassiopeians constantly say, knowledge is going to protect you.
Yes.
It's going to protect you from ways you don't even know and don't even realize. Like, it's going to protect you from believing in lies, because they say that believing in lies is service to self, but also it's soul smashing. It smashes your soul. The more lies you believe in, and the more deeply you ascribe to those lies, the deeper you believe in those lies, the closer you hold those lies, the more you're smashing your soul. Right. Oh yeah, there was another question down there about selling your soul.
Yes, I think.
And so I was just touching on that about believing in lies. That's selling your soul when you deeply believe in the lies. So when you follow the false story, whatever it be, religion or the story of the white hats are saving us, and this is just a movie, that's selling your soul. It's as simple as that. And there's plenty.
But do you think the key is it's okay to kind of explore all these different little avenues and little cul-de-sacs, as long as you're not attached to them?
Exactly, right. As long as you don't self-identify with it too much, and you'll learn that after with a lot of practice, you'll eventually learn how to do that, and with gathering enough knowledge, and you'll start to understand what the red flags are. Just really digging for the truth, and not falling for stuff.
Yeah. And so having that discernment.
The storylines that are, and they have discernment, and even if something sounds really exciting and it's something that would be really cool if it was happening, or some discovery or whatever, that to really, before you fully dive into it with belief and self-identifying with it, that to create some distance, and then take your time.
People do need to know about, but I also feel like it comes down to our free will, and that is on that individual person. If they want to find the truth, then they will go search for that. And if they don't want to know the truth, then...
And I think that, the reason why, someone like Trump or whatever is not going to come out with the blatant truth to the masses is because they have to be concerned about keeping, social order.
Yeah, because it would go nuts.
Oh, absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then that would just be horrible for everyday people to try and, I don't want that to happen. And of course, we want to see these justice served to these people that pushed all of this. But I think there's more creative ways that they could bring those people to heal and to find justice instead of going with the route of exposing the whole thing. Because if these people committed these crimes, they've also committed other crimes that are just as bad. That isn't going to cause, that they could be brought in on charges that isn't going to cause social unrest. Because trust me, I've thought about this a lot, about the truth coming out, and it needs to come out and all of that. And I've realized, actually, we got to be careful with that. Because once the cat's out of the bag, that's it. Just think about just local law enforcement and how easily the population can overwhelm them. And before you know it, it's no longer about justice for the crimes that were committed through or whatever. Then it's just vigilantes out there, opportunists out there, robbing, looting, whatever, random violence. It's forget about the vindication, forget about everyone knowing the truth and thinking that, just because the lights turned on doesn't mean someone's going to wake up out of their sleep, and so you got to think about all the implications of this. And I think that's probably why the Trump administration does have to be careful about what they're releasing and realize this, or I'll be watching something and I'll be like, if only they'd just seen this and understand what I was talking about. But I think you just get to the point where you're like, at the end of the day, does it really matter? You're right. We saw the truth. We did what was right for us and our family. And there's, they have their own consequences and their own karma to deal with the decisions that they've made. That's kind of on them.
Yeah, and justice will eventually come around. But what I've realized throughout the years is that, justice is served in its own time. And usually by the time that justice is served, it doesn't feel quite as good as you expected it to feel because it takes so long. It's by the time that it happens, it's man, I've already gotten over that. But it's glad.
I've moved on.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that justice was served, but you very, very rarely is justice served in the moment where you want it served, and it would be the most potent, which is unfortunate, but that's usually the way that it goes because you're dealing with someone else's, karma and lessons that they have to learn. And so the universe is always going to give them the time, to learn the lesson as karma is served very slowly in its own way.